Not yet.
Welcome to the Westerosi Free Folk Podcast, brought to you by WildLinkSports.com. I'm Ryan. As always, I'm here with Mark. Today we're reviewing Game
How's it
of
going?
Thrones, Episode 10, Season 6, The Winds of Winter. Last episode of the season. You can check out the old podcast on www.wildlinksports.com, Stitcher, SoundCloud. Right off the bat, what'd you think of the episode, Mark?
I'd say that it was probably one of the best Game of Thrones episodes ever. Just in the big picture, grand scheme of things, in terms of hitting all these different story arcs and kind of coming through on certain you can say fan theories and wishes and holy shit moments from beginning to end. I thought it was probably one of the best episodes ever. What do you think?
Yeah, same thing. Like, not only was it like just the storyline's great, the music. We've been talking about this all season, but I thought the music was just excellent. Some of the cinematography was just like excellent. Some of the views we got to see. In previous final episodes, we also got kind of, we got bad things story wise. Like last year, Jon died. You had the Red Wedding. I know that wasn't a finale, but we actually got to see some good things happen too, and some things we were really rooting for. And for even things like the first Cersei scene, we kind of knew what was going to happen, but they still did such a good job of building up the tension and throwing little other smaller things in there you wouldn't expect. And there were just some scenes I didn't expect at all, which I thought was just very, very well done. So maybe, I don't know if it's just kind of recency bias here, but it's one of probably my favorite episodes to date. But we'll see how that goes, a few weeks from now.
Yeah. I mean, big picture, like in terms of like hitting on everything, I think it was the best episode ever. I can't really compare it to, let's say, like The Watchers on the Wall or Blackwater or Hardhome, because those are such like singular, very narrowly focused episodes. And this one was, hit on every single storyline and hit on it really, really well.
Yeah, and it gave us really, it kind of took that turn into the end game too. I feel like we've been waiting for a little while for Game of Thrones to take the turn into the end game, kind of consolidate some characters and give us a picture of where we're looking kind of these last season and a half, 15 odd episodes left. And really, we're back where we started, where we have the Targaryens, we have the Lannisters, and we have the Starks. And we have some ancillary characters around those people, but those are the three big factions. And those have kind of always been the three big factions, but you can see them really kind of vying for power and building up their bases now. And then the White Walkers, obviously, in the north. So
it's come full circle. And
let's jump into the stump questions here. 6-5, you're beating me here. Season to date. I'm going to start first.
All right.
Well,
go for it.
So, Lady Lyanna, she calls out three different heads of the houses for not supporting the Starks. Do you know what three heads of the houses that they are?
I do, because this is one of my questions.
Oh, nice.
It's House Manderley, House Kerwin, and House Glover.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were going to be able to get Kerwin. Nice. Was that your first question for me too?
I had a few, but that was one of my questions. I was also going to have you put them in order, in the order that she called them out.
Oh, nice. There it was.
All right, so I can't use that one. So I'll ask you, what are Benjen Stark's final words to Bran?
He was saying something like, I'm still fighting for the living. I'll fight as long as I can. Right? Or was that not his final words? Or I'll do it for as long as I can.
Not his final words.
No, what were his final words?
It's a very popular phrase that's been used by multiple characters throughout multiple seasons.
Good luck in the wars to come? Or good luck?
Yeah, but I found this very interesting. He says, usually they say, "I wish you good fortune in the wars to come."
Yeah.
And Benjamin this time he says, "I just simply I wish you good fortune," which I found very interesting because the war has arrived. The war is here.
Yeah, that is.
It's like next season the war is happening. So I thought it was a nice little touch by the producers there. Just cut it off at "wish you good fortune."
Yeah, that is good. I didn't even notice that. I know that they've said that a bunch. I believe Mann said it to Stannis a few seasons ago. Then Arthur Dayne said it to Ned there last season.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Sam gets to the Citadel, and he's talking to the bookkeeper there, and then he says, you're going to have to go see somebody to discuss the irregularities. Do you know who he's got to go see next, Sam?
The Archmaester?
Yeah, the Archmaester. Dang, you got this one.
My final question was, name the 3 Sand Snakes.
Oh. Barbara? Obara? Tyene and Nymeria, or Nym.
Yep, you got it.
Nice. Here you go. 7-5 season to date. We're gonna have to figure out something to do for you here. That's pretty good though. Oh, I've stumped you 5 times. I'm impressed with that. I'm happy with that. Here we go. So let's jump in first scene, and we'll just run through all of King's Landing here. What'd you think of the King's Landing scene right away? I thought it was great. What'd you think?
Probably one of my favorite scenes. Not just this season, but like the entire show. I mean, it was almost dialogue free for the most part, and it was like, I think it was probably more than 10 minutes long, where you have that amazing score playing in the background.
Yeah.
As the tension, as you said, builds and builds and builds to the moment, we've all kind of been expecting. But there's all these surprises along the way. Whether it was Loras Tyrell basically committing himself entirely to the Faith Militant and basically joining their ranks, basically denouncing his entire family. Whether it was the Mountain not allowing Tommen to leave his bedroom. How the wildfire was lit up with the children. How Maester Pycelle met his untimely end. And finally, probably the one that surprised me the most was the scene with Tommen putting down his crown and committing suicide. So overall, badass scene. What did you think?
Yeah, I agree. And I actually timed it because on the rewatch, it felt like such a long scene. And it was actually 23 minutes from when they actually started to when the wildfire went off, or like right around the next part with Septa Unella, which is like,
that's crazy.
It's longer than the actual battle was last week during the Battle of the Bastards. But like you said, just the little touches the director did. And again, this was same director, Miguel Spejeda, as Hardhome and in last week.
He should direct every episode.
Yeah, he should. He really should.
Would you agree with that?
Those are like 3 of my favorite episodes ever. Just watching, and he described it in the game reveal, the 2-part, where they go in depth on every 2 episodes. And he talked about how he wanted to basically show everybody getting ready for work. Almost everyone's getting dressed, putting on their different uniforms almost. And, right off the bat, when you see Cersei basically putting on the armor there, what looked like armor there, you knew she had something. Yeah, exactly. You knew she had something planned. And the music, like you said, no real words there. The imagery too, I really like the huge statues in the Sept. those were really nice. And Cersei, or the part when Marjorie kind of confronts the High Sparrow about how, she didn't think he was going to do that to Loras. I thought that was really good. Obviously the producers and the directors, the whole season, they knew that this was coming, and they knew the High Sparrow and Loras and Marjorie and Mace and Kevin and Lancel and Pycelle, they knew they were all going to meet their end here. But they still had these plots with Marjorie and the High Sparrow. They still had all this plotting going with them, which I thought was good, even though they knew, none of this plotting was going to pan out in the end. They would still be doing that in those situations, which I thought was good. They didn't just kind of push those characters aside. It felt like an earned moment because we've been with Marjorie so long this season. She's gotten so much screen time. We've gotten to like her a little bit more. Right when she finds out what's going on, I'm like rooting for her. I even out loud, I'm like, Marjorie, get out of there. Come on, just run, Marjorie. Just take Loras and get out of there. But, I was a little surprised to see Marjorie go. I wasn't sure if she'd still be in that. But it kind of makes sense that she was going to go out with the rest of her family there. And even Lancel, when he goes into the tunnels there, you kind of see, at first you just see him lying there, and then you start to see all the wildfire jars on the side, and then you see, some of the wildfire is kind of leaking out and some of the jars are out, and then you see the whole stash of wildfire with the candles. At first I'm thinking, like, how's he going to light it? Is his torch going to fall into something or what? But at the end, when you see the candles, you know what's up. Lancel's not going to get there. And it's funny that Lancel was the one originally who told Tyrion that Cersei was plotting wildfire back right before the Blackwater. So I thought it was good that he was the one to actually find it down there. And, just that whole scene with Loras or Lancel kind of crawling up there, just inching his way. And the CGI was pretty good too with the actual thing blowing up. Just that inside with the High Sparrow kind of recognizing right before he was about to go that this was his time.
Yeah, I mean, the build-up was pretty tense. I like how Marjorie realizes that Cersei's up to something and that everyone needs to leave, and she basically says, fuck the gods. I don't care about the gods. We need to get out of here. So she realizes that, Cersei's up to something and that they're probably all going to die. No one probably has any idea that it's going to be by wildfire. They're probably thinking like that the Lannister army is probably going to come in and just kill them all.
Something was going to happen.
But I was really surprised that Marjorie died. I think almost everybody I talked to about the episode, they all expressed like unhappiness that Marjorie, bit the dust. I think even myself was expecting a little bit more from her story. And if you think going back to Cersei's prophecy, basically they described it in the prophecy that another queen will come to take her place, someone younger and more beautiful. And it's not Marjorie. Cersei thinks it's Marjorie, and she eliminates Marjorie from the picture, but it's actually Daenerys.
It could be. Yeah, that's what I was thinking about too. It's I had that written down. A queen, another will come, younger and more beautiful, to take everything you hold dear. And it's funny that actually Marjorie was the reason why Tommen committed suicide. It was the Queen of Thorns who killed Joffrey, and it was Illyria, who's a princess down in Dorne now, who took out Myrcella. So it was a princess or queen who ended up killing all her kids. But yeah, at first Cersei thought it was Sansa. The first few seasons was going to be that. And then she thinks it's Marjorie, and I'm sure eventually it will be. It'll probably either be Daenerys or maybe Sansa, but most likely Daenerys here. I thought, then we kind of work into Septa Unella, and this was Cersei kind of just going a little bit crazy here. She's clearly out for vengeance, and I feel like her storyline is going to be a strictly vengeance thing here. Moving on, I couldn't tell if this was like a sexual thing with the Mountain, or he was just going to torture her or what. But she was, she was ready for some payback, definitely.
Yeah, I'll talk about that. I want to go back to Septa Baylor a little bit too, but I took Cersei. This is her becoming Mad Queen. She's basically going to do anything that makes her happy. So she's going to be basically torturing and doing some serious harm to anybody that stands in her way, in very much the same way that the Mad King operated before he is killed. I took that scene and her bringing in the Mountain as something pretty sexual, because she is a nun. She's probably a virgin.
Yeah.
And you have the Mountain basically, gets a toy, with pretty brutal scene. And Cersei, walks out yelling shame. And you're not gonna die today. It's gonna be a long time before you die. So it's gonna be not good for Septa.
It seemed like, the Mountain was being rewarded for his leal service to Cersei, and Qyburn was being rewarded by being able to kill Pycelle there. Let's pour one out here for Margaery. I have to say, now that Margaery's storyline has come to an end here, she was probably maybe my favorite change kind of from the book to the show. From the book, she doesn't really get as much, you don't get as much in-depth detail about Margaery. She doesn't get as much plotting and underhandedness. And, they gave her a much more expanded role in the show. And I really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed Natalie Dormer. And for Pycelle, too. Let's pour one out for Pycelle. Another character who's been in it since season 1. He might have been the most seen character that died this year. Maybe Hodor earlier in the season. But once again, we see Pycelle kind of stiffen another prostitute. He's not paying her at the end. He's just walking out without actually giving her any money. We saw this once before, Pycelle. It's a bad habit to be in. Definitely a bad habit.
I go back to one of the cool scenes of Game of Thrones is that scene where Pycelle is leaving after, his shenanigans at night with the prostitutes, and he is walking fine. He's no hunched over. He, there's a little pep in his step, and he's like getting out of bed, he's getting dressed, and as soon as he opens that door, he shifts into old, stiff back, can barely walk.
Yes,
Maester Pycelle playing this big game, this big charade. So I thought it was nice to revisit that moment, and then up to his, arranged death by the children there. Also, like Tommen, that whole scene, he's looking out at the Septa Baylor, and everything he holds dear is in that sept at that point in time. It's Margaery, who he loves, even though she probably doesn't like him. It's his mentor, the High Sparrow, basically, who was this like father figure that he didn't have. He had converted fully to the faith, and everything he holds dear is literally just blows up right before his eyes, and there's nothing he can do about it. And just that silent scene with no dialogue, where he's looking out at the Septa Baylor in ruins, and he takes off his crown and walks out of the frame, and the frame doesn't move. It's still just focused on that, and he comes back and just walks out the window. Pretty powerful scene. My sister thought she said it was the best scene that Game of Thrones has ever done. I don't know about that, but I thought it was very well done.
Yeah, so did I. After that, we had talked last week about how, we both thought Tommen, was probably going to die this week. He was definitely on the death watch. So after the whole Septa Baylor scene, it's all happened, and there's Tommen kind of watching, and I'm thinking like, oh, is Tommen going to make it through this? And then he kind of sets the crown, walks over and sets the crown down, and then they just leave the frame on the window, and I kind of assumed what was coming here, but it was still a shock to see him just walk up and just drop out. It's almost like he had nothing left almost, he was, he lost, like you said, his queen. He lost the High Sparrow, who was his, ultimate almost mentor at that time. He lost his whole small council pretty much. The Lannisters lost their only ally in the Tyrells at that point. He was very much a creature of whatever was right in front of him. That's kind of what he was going to follow. And everything just kind of got blown up. I think he was kind of waiting there originally because I think he was a little bit worried about Cersei, and he didn't want to see Cersei kind of go through with this. But at the end of the day, he would have rather lost Cersei, I think, than everything in the Sept. And, he couldn't quite handle it at that exact moment right there. And with Septa Unella.
Two more. Go ahead.
Yep. No, and I was just going to say with Septa Unella, that monologue that Cersei gives is just on point, doing the things that make her feel good. She had sex with Jaime because it made her feel good. She protected and lied about Jaime because it made her feel good to protect her son. She killed the High Sparrow and all his little sparrows because it made her feel good. She killed
Robert.
Yeah, because it made her feel good. She ends up confessing at the end, exactly what the High Sparrow wanted, just maybe in a different circumstance than he envisioned.
Two other things with that. First off, just the Sept of Baelor. Okay, it's a symbol of the faith of the Seven, of really the religion of the South. Most of Westeros for that matter. But beyond that, and beyond all the people that died within that scene, it is where every king and queen is buried. Like the entire Targaryen legacy and lineage is buried within that sept. Like the remains of all the kings and queens and family members, they're all there. So for that to just go kablooey, it's pretty big.
Yeah,
it's symbolic. It's Cersei just destroying, the Targaryen history basically, and I don't think Daenerys is going to be too happy about it. Another thing, when Tommen's body's recovered and she's with Qyburn there, she makes Qyburn show the body to her, and then Qyburn's like, "What would we have done here for this body?" And she's basically just like, "Burn it." Which is like a very Targaryen Mad King response: burn the body and add to the ashes of the Sept of Baelor with the rest of his family.
Yeah,
pretty crazy.
That scene kind of, to me, it just showed how far she had fallen. Almost, she said, put him with his father, put him with my father Tywin, his brother, with his sister. She almost had no emotion at that point. She was just solid. Her mind had switched to kind of vengeance mode here, and she was just plotting her next move. She just burn them all. You can imagine the Mad King saying that back in the day, just burn it all. That was, like you said, that was really her switch to the Mad Queen role here. So let's take a quick transition then to her loving brother Jaime. And he's at the Twins. He's with Walder Frey. The first, we get them talking. We get the serving girl who would be Arya there. At that point, and through that entire scene, I would have never guessed that was Arya had we not gotten the subsequent scene after that. I really kind of liked Walder's humor there a little bit. Repeating the Lannisters and Frey send their regards line. And Jaime's just disdain for Walder Frey was good as well. The whole Kingslayer, we're a bunch of Kingslayer line was really good.
Yeah, I love the dialogue between Jaime and Walder Frey. Walder Frey's talking to him as if they're equals, and Jaime's like, "Whoa, no, man, not at all. Freys and Lannisters are not equal. If we have to come to your aid at every moment's notice because you can't do anything yourselves, then why do we need you?" Like, Jaime's just telling him, like, "What's up? Like, you're basically worthless."
Yeah, no, for sure.
The late Walder Frey.
He and him asking him, what battles have you fought? And Walder did have a pretty good response there. Isn't the purpose of a battle to defeat your enemies? Well, I've defeated my enemies. And I think when he had said the Tullys have been ruling the Riverlands for 1,000 years, I think Jaime kind of in his mind, he's like, what the hell did I just help happen? I'm like rewriting history here. And I think that something kind of flipped in Jaime's mind at that moment. And I think we're going to see him come a little bit further back on the, the redemption arc that he kind of fell off a little bit this year as he was reunited with Cersei at the beginning of the season. And they kind of, I feel like Cersei just brings him back to the Kingslayer mode that he's been in for so long. I anticipate kind of next season that they'll have a few episodes where they do kind of come together a little bit, but I don't think that we're going to see much more from that relationship there. But it's always good to see the twins.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
Yeah, thinking about the Jaime arc there in the books, it happens much quicker. And it hasn't really happened in the show yet where he begins to just not like Cersei at all. I think you're right in the sense that next season you're going to see an entirely different relationship between Jaime and Cersei because she basically became the person and she became the Mad King basically and did what Jaime killed the Mad King and prevented him from doing. Like she burned the city, she burned the Sept, she lit the wildfire. So if Jaime still has feelings for Cersei next season, I don't think would be a very wise move by the producer's part.
Yeah, no, I don't think it will either. I think like I said, I think they'll try to have maybe a scene, maybe 2 or 3 scenes where they're trying to kind of come together, but just Jaime can't do it. And you could see that look at the end, and we'll get to that in a little bit. That look with Jaime. When he gave Cersei. So let's just say in the twins, and second, before we move off that scene, it's always good to see Bronn. Next year, official petition, we need more Bronn, more than 2 or 3 scenes with Bronn. Anybody he's paired up with, I think, I love Bronn. Him saying that he wasn't in the mood for sex or he wasn't looking for sex. I feel like, that and fighting is all Bronn. But let's stay in the twins. After that, we get Walder Frey kind of alone. This seems to be a little while after the actual feast there. Right when he had said, "You're not one of mine," to Arya, that is the moment I knew that girl was probably Arya. When did you think that person was Arya? Or did you know kind of in the initial scene, or not until she took off that face there?
I had an inkling that it might be Arya as soon as the whole Frey pie thing started. It didn't cross my mind when he says you're not one of mine. But like looking back on it, like how badass is Arya in that scene where she's like eyeing up Jaime?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like that's so cool. And then she serves him the pie. And he's like, "Where are my sons?" And she's like, "They're here, my lord." And I freaked out because, Frey pie. Like, this is like a book moment that's coming to fruition on the show. It's not how it happened in the books, but we get our Frey pie where, Walder Frey literally eats his offspring. We didn't get the Rat Cook song playing in the background, but very cool nonetheless. I literally freaked out when Arya, pulled off the face and, slit Walder Frey's throat. I thought it was awesome. What did you think?
Yeah. I mean, I agree. That was, maybe not, that was one of my favorite parts. You think back on this episode as a whole, and you got the King in the North, you got Frey pie, you got Dany sailing, you got the Tower of Joy, you got the wildfire. Like, there are so many just highlight moments. And they sneak in the Frey pie in there. They didn't have to do that, but I felt like that was such a good kind of just drop in there for book readers as well as just the audience, a good moment for them. But it also kind of got me thinking.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
I just like the whole notion. Okay, Walder Frey is dead. his sons are dead. His two heirs, like next in line, are dead. Yes, he has like I don't know how many sons and daughters, but they're literally going to be scrambling to replace him. Like Frey right now is in shambles. They're probably going to blame the Lannisters because the Lannisters are just there. So the Lannisters basically don't have any allies right now. And the Freys, they're going to be very, very weak. We saw how inept they are at military tactics. So it's very, very likely that the North will descend upon the Freys and kind of just finish them off. I think that'll be interesting to see how that goes down.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be a time when, one Frey child there would be better than 50. Because I feel like everybody is just going to start vying, and there's going to be infighting in the Freys to try to kind of assume the mantle of Walder Frey. And we already have a little bit of a foothold in there we saw a little bit of a Tully resistance with the Blackfish. We also know the Brotherhood Without Banners is there somewhere around the Riverlands. So I think it'll be interesting to see who's able to kind of control that area and control the forces. Is Jaime going to kind of get with Edmure and try to control that to bring it into House Lannister? I don't think so. Probably not. I think there's a better chance that the North is able to, kind of reunite the original northern forces of the Riverlands in the North and the Vale. And it also got me thinking, like, what could Arya do? Like, what kind of vengeance could she dole out where we wouldn't take the turn and think like, wow, Arya's just going a little bit overboard here. Like, she literally killed somebody's sons, chopped them up, baked them into a pie, fed that pie to somebody, and then slit his throat while she said she was going to stand there smiling over him. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. But if we're not going to take the turn on Arya at that point, unless she kills like one of the main characters that we actually really enjoy, one of the fan favorite protagonists, there's nothing that Arya can do where we'll take a turn with her. So I think it just speaks to how good the directing has been, that we've taken this whole kind of road with Arya. And Arya and Sansa's role, though they're different characters, they've been in almost the same situation as kind of captives and trying to pretend that who they're not up until this season. And we've seen each of them kind of break out a little bit this season. And the Stark girls are running wild now.
A few things about Arya. I think most people's reactions are like, hell yeah, Arya, go girl. But she's like this like brutal killer, like who has like no feelings at all about what she does, and she's very good at what she does. So I don't know. I think there's a few possibilities of where her story goes next season. I can see her heading south to kind of cross the rest of the names off her list, and possibly maybe even joining up with the Brotherhood Without Banners. Maybe fulfilling that Lady Stoneheart role where you have a Stark that is just running across the Riverlands with this group, exacting revenge upon all the people that did the Starks wrong. We also got to think that in the Riverlands is her direwolf, Nymeria, who supposedly and should be leading this massive giant pack of like hundreds of wolves, this giant she-wolf. Hopefully they reunite. Who's left on our list? The only two names that come to my mind are Cersei and the Mount. So she has to be heading to King's Landing. Or is she going to head north? I mean, she's pretty close to Winterfell, and Jon and Sansa have control of Winterfell. I just don't see her doing that, though. I think it's all vengeance all the time with Arya.
Yeah, I agree. I think, she originally said back to Jaqen that she's Arya Stark and she's going home. But I think a lot of people took that as Winterfell. I kind of just took that as she's going home to Westeros, and she's going back to Westeros. And I think she's going to run into this kind of crux where she can go two ways. She can go north and meet back up with her family and do what her dad always said. Her dad always said, the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. And that was the mantra in her head for so long. She's kind of going to be at her crux where she
Yeah.
could go north and go with her pack with Jon or with Sansa, or she can continue down the road of vengeance and she could go south and she could go to Cersei and she can go to the mountain and they can and then she can kind of try to continue to check names off her list. You know, if anybody can kill the mountain and find a way to kill him, I think it could be Arya. But also, you know, we may see her and the Brotherhood, and we may see her and Melisandre kind of meet up again now that Melisandre is heading that way. So I think she's going to be at a little bit of a crux, but I think definitely a good comeback episode for Arya after the last few for her.
I agree. Melisandre did tell Arya in I think season 3 that they would meet again. So you know, obviously the Brotherhood Without Banners are supporters of the Red God. Melisandre, like Thoros, has power now. She has resurrected Jon, so she does have a purpose. So not only will she be reuniting with Melisandre and the Brotherhood, but she'll be reuniting with the freaking Hound.
The Hound, yes, and I think that would be awesome. And Melisandre, we'll talk a little bit more about Melisandre later, but I just, I think, like I said, I think Arya is going to come to that crux, and I hope she goes north rather than going south here. So let's talk about a little trip down south to the Reach. I think this might be our first. Maybe we were there with Renly earlier, so maybe our second trip actually to the Reach. We get Sam on his way to the Citadel, just the high tower there, and all of Old Town, and just that look at the end was awesome. Anytime we go to a new place, and we visited Horn Hill, we visited Hightower and the Old Town. Anytime we're visiting a new place, I love it. It's great to see new areas in Westeros. The Maester there, he seemed a little bit snobbish. It's interesting to see him. It's interesting to see, how far kind of behind they are. They're so far south that they're still on a moment in history when G.R. Mormont died, let alone everything that's happened since, the Wildlings attacking, the White Walkers coming. It's interesting how much has actually flowed down to how little has flowed down to them since then. What do you think?
I initially was rather perturbed by that. How the hell do they not know that these things have happened? They're supposed to be like very knowledgeable of everything, but maybe they're just so caught up in the past history and learning that they don't really care that much about current events because it doesn't really matter in Old Town. It doesn't really matter in the Citadel. So in retrospect, I can see how that could happen. When Sam has a sit down with the Archmaester, I definitely think there's going to be some serious stuff happening from the Citadel's part, because they now know that not only is this going to be the worst winter in 1,000 years, but it's a long night 2.0.
Yeah, and it was interesting when he got in there, as he's walking through, you see the kind of the chains on the walls as he's walking up, or the chains on the books as he's walking up. And, it reminded me of the Great Library. I forget if it was supposed to be in Alexandria or the Vatican, or, this great library there.
The Lighthouse of Alexandria.
Yeah, yep, exactly. And they kind of walk in there, and you see that little hanging piece up on the top, which looks exactly like the thing surrounding the sun in the actual intro theme song, which was cool. Which kind of
astrolabe.
Yeah, the big astrolight there, or astrolamp, which kind of leads you to, could this whole Song of Ice and Fire just be kind of a story that a Maester's writing down 50 years from now, 60 years from now? It's just interesting to think about how it's going to end. And as Sam was kind of walking in there through the aisles. I got a little bit nervous there for him. I figured it was going to end one of two ways. He was just going to see this beautiful library, or like Dickon or Randall were going to be like waiting there for him for Heartsbane, which was pretty, Sam wasn't exactly hiding it very well,
Yeah. I think though that once he's in the Citadel though, he's in like a sanctuary. Like they can't go get him. They're not welcome. Kind of like how Gilly and the unaging child aren't allowed in the Citadel itself. I feel like Sam is in a little sanctuary right now, and he's basically in his paradise. Every book, 8,000 years of history is there at his fingertips, and I think this is going to be, through Sam and through Bran, how is Westeros going to unite to face off against the Night's King? The information is going to come from Bran, and it's going to come from Sam in the Citadel. That's what I think.
Yeah.
So I think Sam has an important role to play.
Yeah, I think he does too. Bran's obviously a lot closer now to Jon, though I'm sure it'll take Mira 3 seasons to drag him at her pace. But it's he's going to bring a lot of information there, Bran. So what is Sam going to learn down in the Citadel that's going to be able to help them? Or what is his role going to be down there? He obviously went there, and they brought him there for a reason. So he's either going to uncover something, maybe learn something about the spells of forging Valyrian steel, because they do have Valyrian links that they rework into their chains. So it's possible that they know how to potentially rework it, or he can find old spells to how the old Valyrians used to create Valyrian steel, to maybe make some more once Dany or dragons get there. And also, I think that Sam could not only learning something, but he can be that link that can kind of let Dany know about the White Walkers and what's going on up north. She may hear it from somebody and just kind of dismiss it, but if she hears it from Jon, or she hears it from Sam, and Tyrion's there as well, who visited the Wall, who became friends with Jon, who's the only person to meet Jon and Dany, Tyrion will definitely hold some weight with Tyrion, and he can be that kind of link that lets Dany know, hey, this is what's going on up north. Maybe this is what we really need to be focusing on with your, ultimate weapon dragons here.
Yeah, someone has to inform Dany of what's going on, and we know that people in the South are kind of wrapped up in their own worlds. They're not really knowledgeable what's happening in the North. I find it odd, though, that it seems like most people in the North know that the White Walkers are real and they're a threat, and that based on stories going around, stories circulating maybe about Jon and Hardhome, and ranging beyond the Wall, what happened to Jeor Mormont behind the Wall at the Fist of the First Man. I feel like Northerners are privy to that information, because whenever it's brought up, everyone just gets stone cold silent. Like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
We got to unite behind this common threat. But whenever it's brought up in the South, people are just like, they just laugh at it.
Yeah. They made it a point for Tyrion and Jon to meet those first few episodes. Tyrion didn't have to go to the Wall, but he goes to the Wall. He becomes friends with Jon, and now he's with Daenerys. So I think that eventually Tyrion will be that link between Jon and Dany that get them to hopefully kind of team up with each other. But Tyrion doesn't know about the White Walkers right now. He may have heard and kind of dismissed some stuff when Sir Alistair Thorne came to King's Landing, or Jeor Mormont wrote to King's Landing in the show in season 2. But he doesn't really know the extent of it, and I don't know if he fully believes it as much. So I think there's going to need to be somebody there that kind of gives them that information, and that can definitely be Sam's role. All right, so let's go back up north then. We got Jon, Davos, and Mel. I love this scene. I thought, first of all, the White Raven coming down, I thought was excellent imagery. Liam Cunningham as Davos there, I thought he was great. Just his range of emotions there, in that little verbal battle was awesome. Some of his lines, if he commands you to burn children, then your God is evil. I thought that was awesome. And, Mel wasn't backing down originally. She was throwing a few jabs back at Davos saying, I did it, but so did his father and so did his mother. They also commanded it too. So, kind of knocked Stannis down a little bit. But ultimately,
Yeah.
I don't know how happy I was with Jon. It was almost like, we saw all these people coming to the forefront, Sansa, Arya coming into their own, and there's Jon kind of, not going either way, just kind of going down the middle again. But, he also, I think wants to pay Mel back a little bit for resurrecting him, and not just kind of have her hanged right there.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised by Jon's reaction too, but he did just make a compromise. I thought the actress that plays Melisandre and obviously Liam Cunningham who plays Davos, that they both were very, very excellent in this scene with the emotions that were displayed across both of their faces. It was the first time where you see Melisandre like, oh shit, and then you really saw that on her face, where she thought she was done. Her time had come, and she was prepared to die. And I think Jon is kind of just throwing her a bone a little bit, giving her more time to live, to see maybe she does have a role in the wars to come. And Jon sends her south away from Davos.
Yeah,
I don't know if Davos gets any if Davos is really happy with this. I don't see why he would be.
Gets any
I think
satisfaction,
he
but
wants her dead. Yeah.
I could see that. I think that he picks kind of the middle ground then again there. And like you said, Melisandre was her Karis Van Houten. She was good as well. Just kind of her facial expressions, some of her quotes. My favorite quote in there was when Davos calls her a liar about what she saw in her visions, and she says, "I didn't lie, I was wrong." And she kind of, the difference that she makes between actually lying and just being wrong there, I thought was awesome. And Melisandre, a lot of her visions are coming true now. This great battle in the snow that she originally thought was Stannis, she didn't lie about that. She just interpreted it wrong, but it still happened. It was just with Jon. She saw herself on the battlements. She said she was going to see Arya again, and I assume that she probably will see Arya again. And she always talks about this great war to come and this battle for the light, and that is definitely coming in the future. So I thought she still could have been useful to Jon, but he's now getting the whole North together. And it might not be good to have one of your closest advisors be, a red priestess of R'hllor when most of your followers are followers of the old gods now.
Yeah, so it was good for Jon to get rid of her like that. It kind of parallels Dany dismissing Daario because he's a liability, and same thing for Jon. Melisandre's kind of a liability, not only in the eyes of the Northmen, but also in the eyes of the wildlings. So she has to leave, and she can reappear when the time is right. Let's go to Sansa and Jon a little bit there.
Yeah, so Sansa and Jon up on the paddle-mids. This was one of my favorite scenes as well. Just the symbolism of the White Raven coming and winter coming as the Starks take back Winterfell, I thought was awesome. Them saying winter's here, and either Jon or Sansa, I forget who said it. It says, "Yeah, Father always promised." I thought that was just an awesome line there. Them each kind of giving the Lord title back and forth to each other. No, you deserve it. No, you deserve it. No, you deserve it. And then Sansa, Jon gives Sansa credit, and I thought the best line was when Sansa says, you're always going to be a Stark to me. I thought that was awesome. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I like the emotion on their faces when Sansa brings, Winter is here. Winter's actually here, and Jon kind of just like basks in the cold and the snow of winter, and a smile spreads across his face. Um, but he also tells Sansa that they need to rely and depend upon each other. They need to trust each other because there's so many people that are enemies of theirs, and we're treated to a scene a little bit later on where Sansa and her loyalties are kind of put to the test, and Littlefinger, attempts to basically convince her that basically to marry him, to be by his side, and for him to become, the main man in Winterfell, and eventually to take the Iron Throne. It's the first time we actually see Littlefinger's true ambitions. We kind of all know that that's what he desires, but this is his first time actually admitting it, stating it out loud that, not only does he want it for himself, but he wants Sansa to be by his side. Sansa basically wards off his advances, and then Littlefinger again states and just kind of puts down Jon as this lowly bastard, not worth following. So it's going to be interesting to see how that whole dynamic plays out.
Yeah, once again, she, like you said, that I love seeing the Godswood there, taking us back to the Godswood and Cat and Ned, where they were. And like you said, that last little jab that he throws in on Jon, he's really testing that relationship. And he's going, if Jon and Sansa do kind of split and start to become at odds, which I think a lot of their relationship was healed a little bit with that little talk they had and needing to trust each other. But if they do come at odds again, it's going to be Littlefinger getting in the middle of it. He throws that jab. Who's going to lead the North? A Stark or a motherless bastard born in the South? Which I thought was just, another little jab by Littlefinger. He's got his picture, his Iron Throne with Sansa, and I think the later scene was really a setback to his plans. Let's jump over to Meereen. Well, first we get a quick Dornish scene, which the only thing I really have to say about this is I love Olenna. Her just barbs against the sand snakes were just excellent. And there was another little quote there that the Lannisters had declared war on Dorne and the Tyrells, which I thought was, which was kind of foreboding that, the Lannisters are in power now and they're just ready to just wreck. All Cersei wants is just vengeance. But this scene was more about Varys and more about Olenna and just how, Dany's army is really coming together, and then we shift to Meereen, and obviously we get a little Dario scene, and then we get Tyrion getting his hand to the queen pin. What do you think of those two?
Yeah, I don't feel like we need to talk about Dario's scene too much, but other than you called it last week that Dario is going to be kind of left in this like an administrative role and ruling Meereen when Dany leaves. But I thought the scene with Dany and Tyrion was really, really well done. Very emotionally powerful scene for Tyrion. They're really the only two people that have ever really respected Tyrion and realized, how good of a ruler he could potentially be were Varys and now Dany. So Dany recognizes in him that he is fully capable of guiding her every step of the way because he knows and understands Westeros. He knows and understands the great game. And I thought it was a nice little touch to have him kind of up on that first or second step there to be almost at eye level with Dany during their conversation. And, he gets very emotional when, he's basically named Hand of the Queen.
Yeah, that was awesome. I really liked Dario's little barb. I hope you get that throne you're looking for, and I hope it brings you happiness. It's that all Dany's after right now is this throne, and I think some of her motivations are going to need to shift here in the near future from the throne to what's up north. And you know that in her House of the Undying vision back in season 2, she walks into a burnt down throne room and with snow all around, and she's about to touch the Iron Throne, and then she looks away, and it shifts to a scene of her at the wall, walking out of the wall in that tunnel there. And I think that was kind of symbolism of her kind of going for the Iron Throne, but just before she gets it, she realizes it's time to go north, and eventually she's going to have to learn that. And also that line there with Dany, what frightens Dany is that she felt nothing. You know, when she was saying bye to Daario, all she felt was impatience to get it done with. And, you know, not a great sign of things to come, but we do know that Dany, you know, she has felt love before. For Drogo. She can't have those feelings. She just didn't quite have them for Daario. So, you know, hopefully she'll in the future she'll you know, we'll get some shipping with Dany. Maybe Dany and Bran will hook up. Leading us right into this next scene with Bran. And we get the wards on the wall here. We get to learn that there's magic in the wall, which we know from the books, but they haven't really said too much in the show yet. And then we get Benjen and that nice quote you had talked about before, which I didn't pick up on. And then obviously the Tower of Joy flashback. What'd you think?
Just going back to like the magic being in the wall.
Yeah,
we've already seen in the Weirwood Tree where the three-eyed raven was, that, you know, that place had magic embedded in its roots that protected everyone inside from the White Walkers. But the moment that the Night's King touches Bran, it basically nullifies. So if Bran goes south of the wall, will the magic that embedded in the wall, will that be null and void, and will the Night's King be able to move south because Bran's south? I think that's a question that needs to be seriously considered. Or how will the Night's King and the others and the White Walkers, how will they make it south? Is there an actual horn out there like that's described in the books that can bring down the wall? I think those are probably the two possibilities.
Yeah.
Or will it just climb over that shit?
Yeah. It's going to be one of the...
We don't really know.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be one of the few. And I don't even think the Night's King quite knows yet how he's gonna get through the wall, because, you know, he was obviously trying to kill Bran there. You know, at least kill Bran and turn him into a white, or go kill him, or do something with him to try to get him. And if he really wanted him to go to the wall, you know, he wouldn't have been trying so hard to kill him. He wouldn't have taken his ride. That he wouldn't have needed Benjen to go kind of save him at the last moment. But you're right. I do think that's what's going to end up happening. So it might be a surprise even to the Night's King that the same magics kind of break down the wall. And then obviously, you know, I like the scene. It took Meera a while to drag Bran, like I said, from one edge of the weirwood to the middle of it. So I can't, you know, even imagine how long it's going to take her to drag Bran all the way to the wall and then past the wall to Castle Black. Maybe we'll have a few episodes with her just going through the tunnel underneath the 700-foot wall there. And the Tower of Joy flashback, finally got it. I liked how they had Dawn again here. He sets Dawn right at the end of the bed. We get Lyanna. I like the promise me part. I liked her little, you know, his name is, and then it cut off. And then you just hear, if Robert finds out, he'll kill him. You know he will. And then the whole promise me, Ned. Promise me. The words that always, if you are a book reader, the words that always haunted Ned in those first book when you get his thoughts. You kind of, obviously now you get a feeling. You kind of knew where they were from, but you get it in context, which is great. And then just the music between the baby flashing then to Jon's face, I thought was well done as well. They didn't explicitly say it, but it was heavily implied, and it was enough.
Yeah, I mean, I really like this scene. For book readers and show watchers that, you know, have been talking about this theory for a long time period, and, you know, I think everyone was about probably like 99.9% sure that, you know, Jon is the son of Rhaegar and Lyanna. So to see it actually on screen and so well done. I thought it was very emotionally moving. It was probably one of my favorite scenes of the episode. Though we don't really truly know yet who John's father is. That conveniently they whisper and you can't hear what Lyanna actually tells Ned regarding the father of the baby. But we basically hear that, if Robert finds out, he will kill him. You know he will, Ned. You know he will, Ned. So we do know that Jon is indeed Targaryen. I'm still pretty darn sure that it's Rhaegar, though some popular people out there have stated that it could potentially be the Mad King himself. I don't really see that happening. I think it's Rhaegar, and his love for Lyanna is the Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's got to be Rhaegar at this point, and it just kind of touches back into. I was just thinking about that first. I think it was the second episode actually when Ned and Robert are sitting out in that field enjoying a dinner, and Ned talks about Robert talks about how he'll kill every Targaryen he can get his hands on, and then they work into the conversation about who was Ned's bastard and who was that girl he had sex with during the war to create Jon. Who was Jon's mom? Wylla was her name. Just thinking all the way back there that they were setting this up since the very first, maybe second episode. It's been out there for a while, and it just kind of was confirmed now. So I think, once you get confirmation, you can kind of see all the little clues they placed in all along the way, which I think is just a mark of a very good show. Anything else?
Yeah, a few things, like what you said there in the books and in the show. I thought they did an amazing job of foreshadowing this. I mean, it's actually from the first episode. The very first thing that Robert does when he arrives in Winterfell is he goes down to the crypt with Ned to pay his respects to Lyanna. And in the book and the show, whenever the Targaryens are brought up to Ned Stark, his entire disposition changes, his entire mood changes. He gets incredibly defensive about the Targaryens and how you can't go kill Daenerys. She's just a child. It's just him displaying an emotional attachment to the Targaryens because this boy that he's raised, his nephew is Targaryen. So, Ned, doing the honorable thing here is trying to prevent that from happening. And I think Jon's whole life, he's the bastard of Winterfell. He's Jon Snow. I think Ned, to protect him, was kind of pushing and encouraging him to join the Night's Watch, so he could be protected and kind of have that sanctuary there and protect him from potentially Robert if he were ever find out that he was actually a Targaryen. Yeah. One other thing.
Yep.
I think the significance of this scene was lost on so many casual viewers of the show. Like, all the casual viewers of the show that I talked to, they could not put two and two together here. I talked to numerous people who were like, man, Jon Snow's not Ned's son. Like, and that's all they got out of it. Like, but he's actually Targaryen. Like, you didn't get that part of it. Like, it just, for a casual viewer or even a casual book reader that didn't really look further into it. I think the clues are so far spaced apart, even in the books, that it was hard for them to put it together. So I think kind of separating it in the show, like the scene itself, from like literally 7 episodes apart, I think it might have hurt them a little bit, but people should realize it.
Yeah, and it's tough because obviously they couldn't include Rhaegar there, but maybe if they brought up Rhaegar's name or they brought up the Targaryen name, or they say they'll figure out that they she, instead of saying Robert will kill him if he finds out, they say something like Robert will kill him if he finds out he's a Targaryen or something like that. would have been helpful, unless they're just going for another reveal that Rhaegar's the father. At this point, it really could be anybody that's the father. All the clues, obviously, and all the foreshadowing points to our Targaryen father. But it really could be anybody. It could be Ned for all we know. Who knows? Probably not, but it could be. So let's.
I think one more thing.
Yep.
I think the purpose of omitting Rhaegar being the father in this scene is to next season set up more flashback with Bran. I think next season we're going to see the Night of the Laughing Tree flashback and the whole Tourney of Harrenhal from the books, where we're introduced to one Howland Reed because he is the really only living person that could legitimize Jon Snow as who he truly is.
Yeah, I agree. It's one thing for Bran, and it's one thing for the viewers to find out. It's another thing for Jon to find out, and it'll be interesting to figure out when actually Jon finds out here. So let's jump. We got 3.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on.
Let's jump back here. We get 3 crowning scenes to kind of end it all. We get the King in the North scene. We get Cersei's crowning, and then we get Dany sailing home from Westeros. I think 3 great scenes to show that it's the Targaryens, it's the Lannisters, and it's the Starks up north. Lyanna Mormont in the north and the King in the North scene was first. It was Lady Lyanna, little bit of a spoiler for me for our awards episode, but best new character of the season by far. She killed that little speech she gave. She calls out everybody. She adds the North remembers, which is probably my favorite line of all the books. Jon Snow avenged the Red Wedding, the White Wolf they called him, which was great. And you also get those little mixed feelings of the King in the North because we had Robb and we got to see the Robb scene in season 1. Obviously, I think you feel a little bit more for Jon just because Jon has been built up and you spent so much more time with Jon than Robb at that point. But you also see what happened to Robb throughout the seasons, and you hope that kind of the same thing doesn't happen to Jon here. What do you think?
Yeah, great scene. Very, very strong parallels to the first King in the North scene. You basically have the Northern Lords pledging allegiance and naming Jon King of the North here, despite the fact that he is indeed a bastard. He's still a bastard, even if he is the son of Rhaegar and Lyanna, because Rhaegar was married to Elia Martell. But at the same time, I like what you're saying there, that the power kind of went to Robb's head. He was a king that didn't defend the North. He went south and remained in the South. And a lot of northern houses were then the victims of the raids by the Greyjoys. So there is that disdain there, and I don't think Jon's going to replicate that because he knows that the true threat is from the North, not really from the South. And it's going to be interesting to see, how Jon reacts to this newfound position. I think the most telling thing from that scene was Littlefinger kind of on the side. I think Littlefinger was kind of caught off guard by what happened. He is from the South. He doesn't really know the Northern ways too well. So for that to go down, I think Littlefinger was really, really surprised. He's kind of glaring at Sansa the entire time. But I don't know what to really think about this scene. I mean, Sansa was really, really happy the whole time. Then she glances over at Littlefinger, and then her disposition changes. So I don't really know, where they're going to go with that. I think they've been setting up that Littlefinger and Sansa are going to kind of have this small alliance potentially, and potentially undermine Jon in some form. I'd be really, really unhappy if that were to happen, but I feel like that's the direction they're going. Really, what do you think, man?
Yeah, no, 100% agreed. I think that, John, I think that storyline can go one of two ways. Sansa and John can kind of mend fences, or it's Littlefinger that gets in between Sansa. And he talked about Robb and how he was the king that went south and the king who lost the north. And, it was partly him, obviously. He shouldn't have married Talisa. He shouldn't have, or Jane Westerling. He should have tried to go home and protect the north once the Ironborn attacked. But it was also kind of poor leadership on his general's part. He was getting bad advice from Roose Bolton. Roose Bolton was plotting and undermining him for a lot of the time. He sent Ramsay there to burn down Winterfell. So John's going to need to have a better small council. We know Davos gives good advice. He tells hard truths as he says it. So Davos is a good advisor. I think Tormund's okay. Tormund's not great militarily. We saw he's a fighter, and he has the command and the respect of all the wildlings. But is he going to get respect from people like Bronze Jon Royce, or even the further south you go, how much respect is he going to get? So and Littlefinger, if Littlefinger's there, he's a part of his council. Sansa warns him straight away not to trust Littlefinger. So it'll be interesting to see if we kind of reflect on that and hope John kind of heeded her counsel a little bit more closely there. But all in all, probably my favorite scene of the episode. We get John going from being killed at the end of last season to now being proclaimed king at the end of this season. He'll have some good stories when he goes back up and meets back up with Dolorous Edd. Dolorous Edd will ask him, how did everything go in the South? Oh, they named me king, so we're good to go here. Let's do this, Ed. I'm interested. I'm excited for John and John's storyline moving forward, definitely. I think the North clearly won this season. I think it was probably my favorite storyline of the whole season. Definitely.
Yeah, I agree. Most of the season, the focus was in the North from beginning to end. I really enjoyed it. One other thing about the difference between Robb and John has been faced with temptation, and for the most part, every step of the way has not given into that temptation. And he, sometimes makes the wrong decisions, but for the most part, he does what he thinks is the right thing to do. Robb, on the other hand, kind of gave into temptation, and we saw that that led to. I think John benefits from having served in the Night's Watch. Has benefits obviously from realizing the mistakes he made and how that led to his death. So I think he is in a position to be a much more successful king of the North than Robb ever was. Let's move on to Cersei, the Mad Queen.
Yeah, Cersei's crowning here was a little, that was right when I saw Jamie riding up. I was thinking, my first thought is, are we going to get the Valonqar right now? And then when I see the throne room, very scary looking, very dark with the fires around. You have no more reason to feel bad for Cersei or kind of empathize with Cersei a little bit. They talked about it in the inside the episode, how Cersei's one redeeming quality, and even Tyrion said it once, her one redeeming quality besides her cheekbones were that she loved her kids, and everything she did was to protect her kids. And she doesn't have that anymore to fall back on. So now I think she's just out for vengeance. This scene with her kind of sitting on the Iron Throne, them saying, long may she reign, Qyburn standing next to her as Hand of the Queen, Frank and Gregor there kind of leading the Kingsguard. I think that she, her giving those looks to Jamie, I think it's very scary. I don't think, she just pretty much has the Lannister army and that's it. But I don't think Dany's, a lot of people think Dany's just going to come in and run roughshod over King's Landing. I don't think that's exactly what's going to happen. So I think, they're in a precarious position, but I think they'll find a way to kind of build that up a little bit. If not, Jamie just kind of cuts bait there and then heads north or heads south. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we talked about this a little earlier, how Jamie, I think, is going to turn on Cersei. Whether or not he actually ends up killing her will remain to be seen. Um, I just thought the whole scene was super dark, very metal.
Yeah.
Cersei, I think, based on that look she gave Jamie, she's doing her own thing now. There is no her and Jamie anymore, I don't think. Um, she's going to exact vengeance on everyone. She's going to truly emulate the Mad King. And I think Jamie realizes that, and I think he's going to try to stop it. But I don't know how he's going to be able to.
Yeah. Yeah, I agreed. I think that they're going to come to blows here. This is one of those scenes I didn't expect. I didn't expect to see Cersei crowned as Queen of the Seven Kingdoms here. But she was, and like you said, it's just taking us back to, Cersei. We talked about how there's going to need to be a new big bad now that Ramsay's gone. It went from Joffrey to Ramsay, and we're kind of circling back around, and Cersei was one of those big bads at the beginning. And I think that she's kind of going to be the new, the main antagonist moving into next season. How long that reign lasts, I'm not sure. I don't think it'll be too long, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as Dany coming in and just running roughshod there. I think that, either Jamie's going to kill her or she'll put up a good fight for half a season, and then that'll be it. Not much else really about this scene. Well, let's move into the last scene. Dany sailing home to Westeros. 6 seasons. Dany, I've come to grips with the fact that Dany's going to end a lot of the seasons, and her scenes are going to end a lot of the episodes. But this was still good to see. It reminded me of how all the Targaryens of old. Like, I was thinking, this is probably what Aegon did with his 3 dragons sailing in with Orys Baratheon, sailing to Dragonstone, with the Targaryen banners were awesome there. This is an earned moment. We've waited 6 seasons now for Dany to come to Westeros. And, as early as the book 3 or book 2 or season 3 or 4, we're like, oh, is Dany going to make it to Westeros finally? Is she going to make it to Westeros finally? And it's finally that moment where she's finally coming. We get to see the Ironborn banners. We get to see the Tyrell, the Dorne banners there. We get to see the Dothraki, Grey Worm, Missandei. She has built this giant army and these great advisors around her. It seems like she'd be able to come in and just conquer Westeros within the span of 6 months. But I don't think it's going to be quite as easy as that. But it was still a great scene, great imagery there.
Yeah, I think a very emotional, very powerful scene, obviously, because people have waited so long for this to go down. And her army is huge. I mean, you don't just see Targaryen sails, you see Dornish sails, you see Tyrell sails. She has the Dothraki army. She has the Unsullied. She has the Tyrell army. She has the Dornish army. She has all those ships. She has 3 freaking dragons.
Yeah.
She should be able to just sweep across Westeros, man. I don't know. Where do you think she's going to land? Is she going to land in Dragonstone like her ancestors? Is she going to land in Dorne? Because Dorne's, relatively safe, and we know it's very, very difficult to conquer. Is she going to sail around and first things first, take the Iron Islands for the Greyjoys and add to her fleet? It's being interesting to see where the storyline goes and what she does.
Yeah, I think she's definitely landing in Dragonstone. That's my thought anyway. I think, the Targaryens that's where Aegon landed when he first conquered Westeros. I think that's where she's landing when she first comes to Westeros. And then I think she'll kind of plan it from there, just like Aegon had that painted table. And we see Dragonstone previously in season 2 back with Stannis, and that painted table he sat around with Melisandre and Davos in the room he always sat in. I think that she's going to land there, kind of plan her attack. before she's able to attack King's Landing, I think we'll eventually get a big naval battle with Euron. I think Euron, I don't see obviously him defeating Dany, but I see her taking heavy losses there, especially to 1,000 Ironborn ships that he's looking to create. I think eventually she'll beat him, but by the time she actually lands there and gets going, I feel like she'll have been dealt a pretty big blow. And I don't know, if she does go up north, I don't know how much the Dothraki are really going to be able to help her up there in winter. They seem like they'd be good down in the Dornish lands or maybe even the Tyrell lands. I could see maybe her and Euron meeting in the Reach down where Sam is, and Sam kind of coming into play a little bit there. I think it'll definitely be interesting, but I think long term, eventually she's going up north, and either she's going to come into conflict with Jon, or more likely, I see them kind of teaming up, and we have this big battle against the White Walkers there at the end. Is that what you're thinking? What are you thinking?
Well, we get 2 seasons, right? They're splitting it in half, so we get 6 episodes and 7 episodes. Is that the plan?
Like that. Yeah.
So I would imagine that this next season is going to be Dany taking Westeros. I would imagine that it's going to be probably end with Cersei being overthrown, Dany taking King's Landing, and probably the last season will be the Long Night and the War for Westeros, basically against the dead. That's without. So I would imagine. I don't know if it's going to go down that way.
Yeah.
But that's probably my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree. I can't see the White Walkers really carrying just this battle against the White Walkers carrying more than a few episodes. I don't think. Yeah, maybe 5-6 episodes. I can't see that conflict really playing out for 13 episodes here. So I think we're going to get another kind of 6 to 10 episodes of Dany kind of making her conquering of Westeros, eventually kind of either taking King's Landing or Cersei being destroyed in King's Landing, her battle with Euron, Jon kind of gathering his forces, maybe picking up the Riverlands there. We'll have these two armies, one in the north, one in the south, and then we'll have the White Walkers coming in from the much further north, coming south, and that's I think where we're going. But I think we've finally taken that turn into the end game, and I think we've also taken that turn. This season there was a lot from the old books, but there was also a lot of things that were going to happen kind of in the first part of the next book that we kind of assumed were going to happen, like the wildfire or Jon kind of beating Ramsay in the battle for ice up north. I think we're also, we're moving into territory where no one really knows what's going to happen. We have some ideas of what's going to happen, but it's really all over the board. So it's interesting. It'll definitely be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if the next book comes out before next season. Overall, great episode.
It better.
Yeah, you would hope. You would hope it would.
Yeah, it better.
Overall, great episode. One of my favorite episodes of all time. Anything else you want to bring up about the episode there?
No, I agree. Looking forward to the special end of the year awards podcast.
Yes, sir. All right. So, like I said, we'll have an end of season awards podcast, just like we did in the mid season. We'll touch on some characters and where we think they're going. You can check us out at www.wildlingsports.com or email us at wildlingsports@gmail.com. Listen to us on Stitcher, SoundCloud. Thanks for listening.
Later.